Welcome back to another episode of Serenity Speaks Conversations on Wellness. I'm your host, Cleo, and today I wanted to talk about something slightly different but very, very important. So, whether you're working from home, in an office, customer facing, stress can be a significant part of our professional lives. Workplace stress is a pervasive issue that affects millions of people worldwide. It doesn't discriminate by industry, job title, or location. It can sneak upon you whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting your career. But what exactly is workplace stress? I know I've always associated work with stress or having stressful periods depending on the busyness and expectations of the role. Workplace stress is the physical and emotional response that occurs when the demands of a job exceed the worker's capabilities, resources, or needs. It often stems from factors such as excessive workloads, lack of control, and conflicts with colleagues or supervisors. Feeling overwhelmed, a heavy workload, sometimes due to staff shortages, constantly juggling multiple projects with tight deadlines, headaches, trouble sleeping, increasingly irritable even outside of work. You might recognise some of those symptoms. You can also sometimes feel like a hamster on a wheel, running faster and faster and not getting anywhere. One strategy to try to combat the pressurised work environment could be to communicate to a line manager or supervisor. But if it were that straightforward, I don't believe that this would be an issue in the first place. Many work environments have a culture of the employees being the ones that need to keep up, to be on the grind around the clock. I've got so many friends and acquaintances who accept the pressure as a normal part of their career path, and that they need to put up or keep up or shut up, and are fully aware that they are dispensable. It's really heartbreaking to see. Workplace stress can arise from various sources. So, unclear job roles and expectations can leave people feeling powerless over aspects of their jobs. Difficulties with colleagues or supervisors can lead to fear of losing their jobs and not meeting performance expectations. I know that being given instructions from one manager as urgent and important, then less than an hour later being told or given instructions to do something completely different by another manager can feel demoralising and frustrating. And I can honestly say, whenever that's happened to me, I've always spoken up. I'll nip that in the bud straight away. Sometimes it can be an oversight. Work environments can be extremely busy and pressurised. And for me to communicate is the key way forwards. But unfortunately, some workplaces become toxic environments where stress isn't just occasional, but a constant presence. Toxic environments can be characterised by bullying, a lack of support, negative feedback, that's unconstructive criticism, unrealistic targets, and no appreciation for hard work, which can lead to chronic stress and burnout. Often the idea of speaking to HR about issues becomes the actual problem. The whole idea of being the grass or complaining and making trouble is what has people feeling trapped and helpless with no way out except to continue struggling on, take sick leave, or the extreme, which unfortunately is no way rare, suicide. Sometimes looking for a healthier work environment is the best solution. But again, for some, it's not so easy or straightforward. It's just walking away. I've worked in some extremely toxic environments, and for me, I've always bowed out. There is no company that exists, I feel, that is worth anybody's well-being or putting anybody's well-being at risk. But I do realise that we are all different, and for some, it's just not that simple. I really want to put forward some strategies for resolving issues, but I do know these are not for everyone in every situation. But here goes. Set your boundaries. Learn to say no and set limits on your work and your time, especially outside of work, to prevent burnout. Regular exercise, balanced nutrition, and adequate sleep can improve your resilience to stress. Techniques that we've learned, practiced, and that I've mentioned in previous episodes, such as meditation, deep breathing exercises, can really help reduce stress levels. And seeking support. Don't hesitate to talk to a trusted friend, mentor, or a professional for support and guidance. Try to confide in someone outside of the organisation that you work for, because you just want to make sure that what you are saying remains confidential. And again, I know through experience that it is not always and very rarely the case. I'm not going to name the company, but I worked for an organisation that I was very proud to work for. And I don't want to say too much about the company because I feel that it would be easy for you to guess. And for me, I didn't and don't, in fact, believe that this was that company's culture, but just a few seriously bad eggs. Anyway, every few months, employees were invited and encouraged to give feedback about the company, your experiences and feelings towards the brand, and me, with my full enthusiasm, was filling out my feedback form. Now, we're told in the email that we received that all feedback was anonymous. And that wasn't a choice. You didn't have to tick a box to say, I'd like to be anonymous. It was just anonymous. And that was to ensure, or we understood it was to ensure, that everyone could speak up openly and truthfully. So if there were any issues at all, the company could take them on board without pinpointing just one person's feedback. And this seemed really fair and ultra thoughtful until a colleague of mine told me not to put my true feelings in the feedback, because the feedback was linked to every single employee via their login. And our line managers who would read the feedback would know who had said what. The reason he knew this was because he had made some suggestions in the last feedback session, and a couple of days after, he was called into the manager's office and questioned about his feedback. He was told that his feedback had been erased and that he would get a new email to give proper feedback. I asked him what he had said at the time. Not that it should have mattered, the actual feedback, but I just wanted to know, what would cause such a reaction. And he said that he'd made a suggestion, like a new way to document or the process around lateness and sickness procedures for all staff. Because, and this was true, managers and supervisors had a very different pathway for their lateness and sickness compared to the other employees. And you couldn't see a real reason. Sometimes managers have to make decisions and put things in place because it just makes sense to do so. But really, this didn't make sense. And after all, this is feedback. This is a suggestion that he was making. But what he said, I agreed, sounded a lot fairer. He hadn't been rude or overcritical. It was constructive. The manager went on to tell him that she wished he would leave. She asked him why he hadn't left yet. And when he said because he didn't want to and he loved the job, she replied, "But nobody likes you." As he was telling me this, I felt outraged and asked him whether he had reported it to HR. And he just looked at me as if I just landed from outer space. It was like, am I really that stupid? He basically said that based on that and some other, what I would call bullying from the manager, he was looking for another job. And I really, really encouraged him to speak to HR, and I actually wanted to speak up for him, but I knew that there would be no sense in that. It's something he had to do. He had to take the matter further, but I also understood why he didn't, because who was going to believe him over this particular manager? I was mortified, and I wrote my feedback openly, kind of hoping that the manager would come and call me into her office, but that didn't happen. Now, as we all know at this stage, a lot can take place behind closed doors that people just don't speak about for many, many reasons. The BBC with the Jimmy Savile situation, the whole Me Too movement, Hollywood Uncovered, and the music industry and its cover-ups. The UK government agencies involved in so much covering up that they've had to create whistleblowing strategies. But just because there are strategies in place doesn't mean that the bullying has stopped. In fact, it's probably got worse. People today, right now, in this moment, are still living in fear and are simply getting on with it. I read an article by Matthew Weaver for The Guardian last year. He investigated and wrote this article calling for unions to look into or document and investigate work-related suicides by a watchdog. And that was after the primary school head teacher, Ruth Perry, killed herself while waiting the outcome of an Ofsted report. Now, we don't know the full details of that situation, but it sounds horrendous that you can be under so much pressure to perform that the only solution you can come up with is not even just to leave, it's to take your own life. And I would really like to hear some personal stories about toxic workplaces to share here with other listeners that may help, support, and encourage others to speak out and seek help. So I've put some links in the show notes of organisations that you can speak to privately and confidentially. But if you or someone you know would like to share, please do get in contact. I would really like to hear some of those stories. So I know this has been quite a heavy episode, And I really want to emphasise that there is help out there. Stress in the workplace is a common but can be managed. So whether you're feeling overwhelmed by your workload, if you're dealing with unclear job roles and don't feel like there's anybody to turn to, or you're navigating a toxic work environment, there are steps and procedures you can take to reduce your stress and improve your well-being. At the end of the day, we have to work, we have to pay the bills, we have to support our families. But a job is exactly that. And companies and organisations will replace us if necessary. You need to be putting yourself first. And on that note, I'd like to say thank you once again for tuning in to Serenity Speaks, Conversations on Wellness. And if you found today's episode helpful, please share it with others who might benefit. And don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, take care and stay serene. Are you struggling to get a good night's sleep? Discover the secrets to restful nights with the Sleep Journal from Sleep Well at Peace Love Yoga. Track your sleep patterns, reflect on your day, and find personalised tips to improve your sleep quality. Start your journey to better sleep today.